Welcome you all. Today we are going to talk about another topic, and this time it is speech organs. Speech organs, this is our lecture 6, and this topic is from Linguistics Part 3, English 203, Phonetics and English Phonology. This topic is very essential for the students of university who have been learning linguistics, phonetics and English phonology as their subject, especially concerned to Punjab University. So without a further ado, let's talk about our today's topic. Here we are going to talk about speech organs, and organs of speech are described under three systems. Number one, respiratory system. Respiratory system is concerned with respiration of human being. And number two, that is phonatory system. It is concerned with phones, or we may say voiced and voiceless sounds, how these sounds are produced in vocal cords. And number three, that is articulatory system. Articulatory system is concerned with the articulation of sounds, how sounds are articulated. So without a further ado, let's discuss one by one these all systems and what speech organs are involved while we talk about these all. So here it is, number one we are going to talk about, that is respiratory system. And if we look at this respiratory system, it starts from lungs, and then it comes to trachea, and then it goes through the mouth. So respiratory system actually consists upon three areas or three organs of speech. Number one, that is lungs. Number two, the muscles of the chest. And number three, the windpipe. So let's talk about these all three organs of speech one by one. Number one, the lungs. Perform the action of breathing or respiration, exhalation and inhalation. The lungs provide the source of energy for our vocal cavity by this airstream. So when we talk about the lungs, this is actually the beginning of how sounds they are been produced. So it occurs from the lungs. यानी ये lungs से शुरू होता है. आप जब भी हम कोई sound जो है वो produce करने लगते हैं तो it begins from lungs and then goes through trachea. आप इस पिक्चर के अंदर भी देख सकते हैं कि lungs और lungs में primary bronchi and then ये trachea के through जो है वो mouth के ज़रिए ऊपर जाता है sound. Here if we look at number two, and that is the muscles of the chest. The muscles of the chest, if you look at the picture, so these are the muscles of the chest. The lungs perform respiration under the function of muscles of the chest. So chest, it helps us in breathing, and when we are breathing, it helps us in making sounds or voices. And number three part, or third muscle, that is the windpipe or trachea, we may call it. In picture you may see trachea, or we may call it windpipe. The air passes through the windpipe. So the breathing, it occurs in lungs, from lungs, and then it goes through trachea to mouth. So this is how we are going to talk about that speech organs. The first system, that is the respiratory system. Here we are going to talk about number two, the phonatory system. Before the air stream goes out of the mouth, it undergoes several modifications, and those modifications occur at these two speech organs. Number one, the larynx, and number two, the vocal cords. So if we look at here into the picture, this is very clear that at the larynx there occurs the vocal cords and how these sounds are the phones are been produced. So let's talk about number one, the larynx. It's a bony box like structure in the front part of the throat and the upper part of trachea. It's known as Adam's apple too. इसको हम एडम्स एप्पल भी कहते हैं, और ये ख़ास करके मैन में ज़्यादा होता है, मर्दों में होता है. और ये लैरिंग्स जो है वो इट्स अ बॉनी बॉक्स लाइक स्ट्रक्चर, and how these sounds are produced at this part or at this speech organs. So here we are going to talk about number 2, that is the vocal cords, and these are the key speech organs, or we must say an organ. Vocal cords is actually an organ, and how sounds are being produced here. Vocal cords are a pair of lip-like structure inside the larynx. These cords are placed horizontally from front to the back, joined at the front and separated at the back. Therefore, they can have a large number of positions. तो हम यहाँ पे अगर देखें तो वोकल कार्ड जो है वो लिप लाइक स्ट्रक्चर होता है, और ये जो है लैरिंग्स के अंदर होते हैं, और इसके स्ट्रक्चर बहुत ही इंपॉर्टेंट है जब हम वॉइस्ड एंड वॉइसलेस साउंड्स की बात करते हैं. Here we are going to talk about number 3, and that is the articulatory system. After larynx, the airstream passes through other 9 organs of speech that are lying above the larynx. And here it is the picture. This is a very important picture because we may look at all the speech organs into this picture. It begins from vocal cords, which lies at larynx. Then there is pharynx and epiglottis, and if we look at uvula, if we look at soft palate, hard palate, nasal cavity, or teeth, lips. So let's talk about as a whole, we must say there are these 9 speech organs. So let's talk about one by one about these all articulatory organs. So here we are going to talk about number 1, and that is the lips. So if you look at these lips, how sounds are being produced with the help of lips, like o, la, fa, w. So these are most of the sounds are being produced with the help of lips. The upper and lower lips have an important role in producing certain speech sounds. Here we are going to talk about number 2, that is the teeth. And teeth, they play an important role while producing sounds. Certain consonants are produced with the help of the teeth. Here we are going to talk about number 3, and that is the alveolar ridge. The alveolar ridge, it's located just behind the upper front teeth, and consonantal sounds like t, d, n, l, s, z are produced here. And this is very clear here. If you look at this, this is very near to the teeth. Our teeth gum, we may call it alveolar ridge. So with the help of this speech organ, we produce so many sounds like these. Here is number 3, and that is the hard palate. The hard palate are the hard bony surface of the roof of the mouth immediately after alveolar ridge. It's not movable. Like movement, if we talk about, the front part of the tongue moves towards the hard palate. Like if we pronounce the sounds, example as yes. So if you look at the tongue very clearly into the picture, and this part is known as hard palate. Hard palate, we may call it because it is harder part, and mostly tongue or the mid tongue, it touches to the hard palate, and there occurs a sound. Here we are going to talk about number 5, and that is the soft palate, or we may call it velum. Soft palate or velum, the soft and movable part of the roof of the mouth immediately after the hard palate. So if we look at the picture, velum, or we may call it the soft palate, it occurs between the hard palate and uvula. Here is number 6, and that is uvula. It's a small fleshy pendant structure at the very end of the soft palate. Movements, we may see the back of the tongue articulates with uvula and produce k sound. So this is actually fleshy pendant structure. Pendant का मतलब है कि pendulum like structure, or pendulum we may call it. और ये जो है वो सॉफ्ट जो है वो ऑर्गन होता है, और बहुत सारे साउंड लाइक क साउंड हम जो है वो इंग्लिश में यहाँ से प्रोड्यूस कर रहे होते हैं. So if you look at the picture, this is called uvula. Students, here we are going to talk about number 7th, and that is the tongue. This is absolutely important organ of speech. It's the most important single organ of his speech. It's flexible and can make a large number of gestures to produce his speech sounds. It has different parts. So number 1, that is the tip of the tongue, blade of the tongue, front of the tongue, and number 4, back, and number 5, rims. So there are so many parts, especially tongue is used when we produce vowel sounds. So this is tongue. Here we are going to talk about number 8, and that is the pharynx. The pharynx, it's like a tube just above the pharynx and before uvula. Its top is divided into two parts. One part goes to oral cavity and another goes to nasal cavity. So this is one of the important speech organs which are used to produce voices or sounds. So here if we look at number 8 or number 9, and this is the last speech organ, we may call it. It's the space between the vocal cords. Movements, if we look at into the picture, with a rapid closing, the opening of glottis, the airstream traps behind it, then it sudden release of the airstream, glottal stop sounds, like we produce sounds like matter, butter. So जब साउंड्स जो है वो ट्रैकिया या जो एयर स्ट्रीम जो है वो ट्रैकिया से ऊपर लैरिंग्स से फेरिंग्स की तरफ जाती है, तो ये साउंड्स जो है वो वोकल कार्ड्स से बीच में से गुजरते हैं, तो वो बीच वाला जो नैरो स्पेस है उसको हम ग्लोटिस कह रहे हैं, और यहाँ पे साउंड जो है वो वॉइस्ड और वॉइसलेस साउंड्स प्रोड्यूस होते हैं. सो दिस इज़ वन ऑफ द वेरी एसेंशियल स्पीच ऑर्गन्स व्हेन वी टॉक अबाउट द टॉपिक स्पीच organs or organs of speech. These articulators are actually divided into active and passive articulators. Sometimes this question has been asked to the students, that how articulators are divided and what are the active and passive articulators. So if we look at the picture, we already have talked about these all speech organs, but these all speech organs are divided into two speech organs. Those are active articulators and passive articulators. Number 1, active articulators, if we look at into the picture, are those organs of speech that move from their position of rest to articulate. Organs of speech that do not or cannot move, which are called passive articulators. इसको हम सिंपली यहाँ से ऐसे डिफाइन कर सकते हैं कि एक्टिव आर्टिकुलेटर्स वो आर्टिकुलेटर्स होते हैं, वो स्पीच ऑर्गन्स होते हैं जो कि मूव करते हैं जब हम बात कर रहे हों, जबकि पैसिव आर्टिकुलेटर्स जब हम बात कर रहे हों तो वो ज़्यादा मूव ना करें, यानी ज़्यादा हरकत ना करें, तो उनको हम पैसिव आर्टिकुलेटर्स कहते हैं. The tip and blade of the tongue are active articulators and the alveolar ridge is a passive one. So यहाँ पे अगर हम देखें तो टिप और ब्लेड ऑफ द टंग जो है इसको हम एक्टिव आर्टिकुलेटर्स कह रहे हैं, क्योंकि वो जब हम बात कर रहे होते हैं तो मूव, ये ऑर्गन्स मूव करते हैं, और जबकि alveolar ridge जो है वो मूव नहीं करता, ये ऑर्गन मूव नहीं करता, इस वजह से हम इसको पैसिव आर्टिकुलेटर कह रहे हैं. The active articulators are mostly located in the lower jaw and the passive articulators are mostly in the upper jaw. So if we look at here, lower jaw जो है वो इसको हम active articulators कह रहे हैं ज़्यादातर, और passive articulators ज़्यादातर जो है वो upper jaw के अंदर होते हैं. So here we have gathered all the speech organs into this single lecture. Hopefully this would have been very helping for all of you. Thank you very much. Thanks for attention. Allah Hafiz.